Welcome to the Feature Film Podcast.
Today we are talking about successful failure and the measles.
Enjoy the show.
What's up, guys? It's Kyler.
And this is Ethan.
And this week we have a new person joining us. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Michael, 18. Just joined, about 2 months ago?
2 months ago, yeah.
Roughly. Looking to make some good times.
Yeah, actually, for those who do not know, Michael has been with us for a little while. We love recording videos, but we can never actually get the time, and he actually does a lot of the videography work.
Videography.
I can't pronounce that, so I'm not even going to try. But he's been with us for a long time. He just hasn't been able to join us for the podcast because we love doing the podcast, but our schedules never mix together. So we're happy to have you with us today.
I'm glad to be here.
So I really want to hard geek on Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker.
Of course he does.
I have not had a moment. I know I'm really late to the game, but I have not had a moment to really geek out about how good I thought this movie was. Did y'all both see it?
Yes,
I saw it as
Okay. Well. Episode 9, I loved it. Made my jaw drop so many times. The intro was great. I love the fact that they brought Palpatine back. I thought it was very cool. Some people don't like that. Well, Rian Johnson screwed up the whole Star Wars universe with the number 8 because he, killed the bad guy. Anyway, so, yeah, they brought Palpatine back. They had Kylo Ren reforge his helmet, which was very symbolic.
Yes.
Really cool. And then they finally brought force healing in to the universe, which has never been a thing before. It's been a thing in video games and stuff, but they've never done that in the movie. So that was great. I loved the fact that Kylo Ren became a good guy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it brought balance to the Force when you think about it. Because you saw bad turn to good and good turn to bad, and then they met in the middle. Because Rey
really had a struggle with the dark side, which
she did.
That was really cool. By the way, J.J. Abrams a while back said, I believe, that the plan was to bring Palpatine back the whole time, which is really interesting. And another podcast I listened to, shout out to the Movie Proposal, they talked about this, and they made a point to say, if you watch Rey's fighting style in Episode 7 when she's fighting against Kylo Ren, she is, doing something very specific, very distinct, where she is, thrusting her saber forward. Mm-hmm. The only other person who's done that in Star Wars was Palpatine. If you watch Episode 3 when he's fighting the Jedi, you will see him, thrust his lightsaber forward.
So it's a lot of, almost Easter eggs.
Almost.
If you're that
Committed.
Critiquing.
Observant.
Observant of movies and stuff like that, especially ones that you're big fans of.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
So I love that. You're right. I guess it did kind of bring balance to the Force.
Which, if at the end of the movie, you see Rey and her lightsaber when she
ignites her lightsaber.
Which you know what the color means, right?
Yellow?
It's balance.
I did not know that. Why?
Really?
How did you find that out?
When I went to go see it, I actually saw a bunch of Star Wars geeks, and they were freaking out, oh my gosh, because my brother Jonathan, he likes to talk about Star Wars. Him and his friend Josh, they love to talk about Star Wars, and they like to study it. My brother Jonathan actually has a $400, $300 lightsaber that he custom made himself, and they go into depth of actually what the color of the lightsabers mean, and I think yellow or orange or whatever it is mean balance. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know we have a lot of, this is a movie podcast. I'm sure there are people out there that are listening that know way more about this than I do. But it's balance. It's a form of balance.
That's really interesting, and I did not know that. And that's super cool. The only, you also kind of, if you're going with that, you also kind of have to get into the thought of what is balance? What does that actually look like in Star Wars? When they balance the Force, the prophecy was about Anakin. If you go back to the prequels, the prophecy, he's the chosen one to bring balance to the Force. Well, that kind of culminates in Episode 6, where he throws the Emperor into the pit where he, dies, supposedly. And then Yoda's gone, old Ben is gone, and even Vader dies. Mm-hmm. So the only person left is Luke.
Luke and, I guess,
Leia.
Palpatine as well.
Well, okay, fair. And Leia's, she's not really even like she uses the Force, and I love that they brought that into this later series where she can actually use the Force. But I suppose there was balance because Palpatine and Luke were the strongest users, I suppose, and then later Rey Palpatine came along, and then there was Kylo. So I don't know. I mean, I love the ending. I love that she took the name Skywalker.
Mhm.
I love that. I think this is the part that made me really love it the most. It actually made me a little bit more okay with Episode 8 because if you have talked to me at all about Star Wars, you know that I loathe Episode 8. It's a piece of trash. I wish J.J. Abrams had directed all 3 of these movies because Ryan Johnson, you screwed up the whole Star Wars universe. And I don't like that you did that. I'm sure you are a great filmmaker. I love your short film for the music, the song Oh Baby. Great job with that. If you haven't seen that, look up Oh Baby, Ryan Johnson on Vimeo. It's a wonderful music video short film. But holy crap, I hate what you did with Star Wars. But they combined a lot of things from episodes 7 and 8, and you did J.J. Abrams did a really good job mixing that in together.
Mhm.
So
With all of
I
that
feel a
being
lot
said.
better inside. I had so much bottled up for so long that I hadn't gotten to say. Thank you for letting me go on my little tirade.
It's all good. Actually, today we're talking about a space movie, Apollo 13, which is actually based on a true. It's not sci-fi like it's like or
Right.
science fiction,
It is
but it's
a
actually a
true
legitimate story
Today.
But so
I guess sign on fi.
sign on
Sign
fire.
Sign on
Sign
fire.
non science nonfiction. That's good. So for those who do not know what the Apollo missions are, they are actually a series of space missions, both manned and unmanned, flown by NASA between 1961 and 1965.
And this movie took place in the 70s.
And
Mhm.
yes, when
I think in
Nixon,
1970.
I believe, was
Yep,
president.
Nixon was
Yeah,
president.
because they even told him. I think it was Jake. Is that who we discussed? It was the Swigert.
Yeah.
So he said somewhere in the beginning of the movie before they were launched, or I guess right as they were in space, live broadcasting, he said, "I haven't turned in my tax forms."
And then Nixon said, "You are most definitely out of the country."
Yeah,
You're
later
fine.
on.
Yeah. That was funny.
That's good. Which I like literally this. It's a good movie. It's not like I'm not gonna say it's like my all-time favorite movie of all time, but it's so good. Like so this is the second time I've actually watched it. The first time I watched it was years ago, and I saw it with a friend and his family, and the father would just constantly pause the movie every 5 seconds, give me a fun fact. He would just pause and be like, all right, well, this is what happened. This is what happened. All right, this is a little foreshadow. This is a little this is a little that. It's funny because his wife was like slapping him upside the head. Like, you need to stop it, man. You need to let these kids just enjoy the movie.
That sounds like me.
So do you have any fun facts for us?
Fun facts.
I want to know fun facts.
There's a lot, actually. Like, I have Easter eggs and I have also fun facts. I
give
guess.
us fun facts and then give us Easter eggs.
Well, okay. Well, this
So-
is a cool fact. Did you know that they actually shot the real, like, the zero gravity scenes were actually zero gravity?
Yeah,
Okay.
so-
So this movie, I was freaking out the entire time. Like, how the frick did they do that?
That's exactly what I was doing
Which
all the time.
I Googled it.
I should have.
It was actually what they do for astronaut training. What they do is that they put an airplane up,
Oh, and
And
they do that
Apollo
parabolic
and then
flight.
and then they just
Oh
go
my
steep, and then
I couldn't
they
imagine
actually.
recording that.
Well, imagine
That is
this:
perfect.
if you
Yeah.
watch the movie, there's so much like zero gravity scenes. Every
Mhm.
single one was zero gravity, and
Yeah.
get this: it was only 25 seconds at a time. 25 seconds. Oh my
Okay.
gosh, you could have circled the globe by how many times they had to shoot this freaking movie.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane.
And think about it. The plane they were in had to hold the set that they were in.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So
Oh,
it's just
the crap.
it's just a lot. But also, wait, so what?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that there's another fun one that we were discussing a little previous to this that I found on IMDb, and it was that all of the scenes with the Earth that you can see outside of the window in the spacecraft, those are actually pictures that Jim Lovell took while he was on his mission, like in real life.
Really?
And so they just kind of put that through the window, I guess, like green screen or whatever you want to call it.
Dang, I didn't know that.
So
That's cool.
That's actually really cool. One thing that I like loved as well is just all the quotes from the movie. Like I did not know that failure was not an option actually came from Gene Kran or
Really?
Kranz. Yeah, I knew it was a NASA thing because you hear it all the time, but it was like bam, here it is. And also, this is one of my favorite quotes throughout the entire movie. A guy comes up and he says, "This may be the worst disaster that NASA has ever experienced." And then Gene Kranz comes up and he says, "With all due respect, sir, I believe this will be our finest hour."
Yeah.
And it was a really heartwarming moment to where it's like, wow, like this is like, okay, so in the beginning of the show, we always do the little foreshadow of what we're actually going to talk about, the successful failure. They had a failure, they resolved it, and the measles.
And the mission in real life is known as the successful failure because they never made it to the moon.
Oh yeah, I didn't
And-
actually know that that's actually what it was called.
Yeah.
So backtracking back to like favorite quotes, if you will. My favorite quote, I think it was one of the funniest for me at least. It was when they were in the press conference, taking all the pictures. They were posted up in their space suits right behind the space background, the backdrop.
Yeah.
And one of the reporters or one of the people that was let in to take pictures, he asked one of the three crew members, "So 13 doesn't bother you?" And then one of them, I can't remember who it was, said, "Only if it's on a Friday." That was my favorite reference to Friday the 13th.
So if we're going to go with favorite quotes, here's mine. And it came at the very beginning of the film. It says, Christopher Columbus, Charles Lindbergh, and Neil Armstrong. And I heard that and I got chills. Because, when you think about it, Christopher Columbus was a groundbreaking explorer.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Lindbergh, groundbreaking explorer. And Neil Armstrong, first freaking man to set foot on the moon. Like,
Yeah.
how insane is that? Like, that is a big deal to be listed with one of those three names.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about that.
One thing that, going off of what you said, there was a scene when they're building the rocket and, you have the press coming in and people are just talking. And someone said, "Well, why do we have to go to the moon again?" And he said, "Imagine if Columbus went to America or founded whatever. I don't remember. I don't know the
Yeah,
correct quote.
imagine Christopher Columbus came to America and
And no one
no
followed.
one followed.
It's
Yeah.
like they would just be useless. It would just be terrible. Like there would be no point to that.
So, like you were saying about like favorite quotes and stuff. So one of the quotes that hit me the hardest was it's like the memorable quote of "One small step for man, one
Oh.
huge leap for mankind."
Yeah.
Which actually, bouncing off of that, did you know that everything, like all the, because if you may not even realize unless you rewatch it, they cut to like a news scene like every 10 minutes in the movie.
Mhm.
Like I'm just spitballing that minute amount, but and every single one was actual live footage that they
From back
then.
Wow.
It's not even.
Because this movie was made in 95 or
Yeah,
96.
1995.
And it takes place in the 70s.
Yeah.
So,
That's a 20-year, almost 30-year difference.
which I think is actually just really cool because you see, like, you get to hear everything that is actually going on.
So for all of my car fans out there were so many nice cars.
Oh
There,
my gosh.
what's his name?
Lovell?
Ken.
Oh,
Ken. When he was watching the takeoff, he was in a really nice Stingray. I believe that's what it was. And then Jim also had a nice Corvette that it stalled on him or broke down at
Yeah.
stoplight, and that was one of the good quotes of. It's the second time this has done this. And then the guy that pulled up next to him to ask him, "Hey, aren't you the astronaut that's the captain?" And he was in a nice Mustang,
Which is funny because it's like you're an astronaut, but you can't get your foot off the clutch, right? So, for those who do not actually know the story of Apollo 13, so what it basically is that they're wanting to send a rocket up in space, and they recruit this crew that was planned to go way down the line in the future, but they have 6 months to train. So they go into hardcore training mode, and they just basically get prepared to go to the moon. And toward the end of it, 3 weeks actually prior, Jim Lovell, which is actually the main character, and
Was it
Where's
weeks or days?
it was weeks.
2 weeks.
It was two. Oh, it was 2.
I made a note that said 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Jim Lovell, which is actually the main character, his wife had a nightmare 3 weeks prior to takeoff, and from this fear of her nightmare, she didn't even want to go to the launch.
Mhm.
I don't remember if she did or didn't. Though.
She did.
Yeah,
though.
she
did.
eventually showed up. She caved.
Which is
Yeah.
good because if you imagine if it was an unsuccessful mission, it
Mhm.
would have just I think it would have just absolutely killed her. But it was almost like a foreshadow, like
Mm.
of what was to come.
Well, okay. Speaking of foreshadowing, this was something that stuck out to me at one point, and they wouldn't put this in the movie if it didn't have a reason to be there.
Mhm.
Like that's just how movies work,
Mhm.
you know. But at one point, like the day before, or maybe 2 days before the launch, you see like they show the wife showering, and she drops her wedding ring.
Oh,
Yeah.
Down the
yes,
drain.
yes, in that motel.
Yeah, in the motel, and she
Yeah.
couldn't get it out. And man, when I saw that, I was like, "Oh crap, that's foreshadowing. Like that's not good." And it made me think of. Have you ever heard of the movie K-19, The Widowmaker?
The Widowmaker?
I have not.
No.
It is. It's got Liam Neeson and I can't remember who else. Maybe Harrison Ford. I'm not sure, but it is about a submarine, nuclear submarine, Russian. That it's called the Widowmaker. Referred to it now because
Mhm.
so many people died. Like there was the nuclear reactor failed,
Oh.
and everyone on the ship got radiation poisoning. Everyone died.
Mhm.
I think I could be wrong, but it was like a doomed voyage from the beginning because they show in the very beginning, when a ship goes out to sea for the first time, they christen it, right? They throw a
Mhm.
bottle
Yeah,
against it,
yeah.
it breaks. It didn't break.
Oh.
The bottle, when they threw it against the submarine, it didn't break.
Was it made out of
And
plexiglass?
sailors are like super superstitious.
Yes,
And
I've heard
so
about that.
like the fact that didn't break, everyone's freaking out. Like they showed a panning shot of all these sailors,
Mhm.
and they're just like wide-eyed and in fear because they know that's not good.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the wife in Apollo 13 drop her ring down the drain, I was like, oh gosh, that's not good.
Yeah, champagne didn't
That's-
break.
Right.
So
And
did y'all actually know the story before y'all watched the movie?
I did not. I knew like the idea was there was a problem in space that had to get back.
Mhm.
I knew nothing of the
Yeah, I'm
whole
the same.
story.
I'm the same with Kyler there. I don't do too much research before I watch movies.
It's just a good story, just overall. And one thing is about the movie. So they have the team of astronauts going up in space, and there was a gentleman. What's his name? Ken Mattingly,
Mhm.
and he gets like everyone's freaking out because he has the measles, but in reality, he like.
So they say.
So they say, and they basically kick him from the space program, and then another guy takes his place, from the backup crew, and then they send him off to space. But if you actually think about it, though, so in the movie they're in space, and what happens is that let me see,
It was
NASA told him to stir the tanks, which
Mhm.
actually caused a disaster within the Apollo 13 spacecraft. And then Jim notices that the oxygen is being released into space, and NASA is just in an uproar.
Mhm.
And they were freaking out. But what really caused them, and they're all doing math, trying to solve every problem because there's so many problems. Like the breathing's not right, the trajectory's not right, the fuel's not right, the power's not right. They're trying to figure out ways to conserve ways and just basically get them back to Earth. But if you think about this, if he didn't get accused with having the measles, they would have almost never gotten back home.
So that's what I was going to ask. I was going to give a little food for thought here. Do y'all think that if he hadn't had the measles and I can't remember the third guy's name. I think his name was Jake. I keep referring to him as Jake.
I think so. I think you're right.
Jake Swagger.
Yes.
I think so.
So do you think that he could have done the correct process to make it under the amount of amps that it was needed? Or do you think that he could have
I
he could
don't
have
think
thought of
anyone
that?
So-
really on the ship.
Really, before we actually get into that, to give some context, there was this point in the movie where the ship was losing power. They couldn't keep on all the equipment they needed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they had to turn off the ship and figure out how do we power everything on that we need while not going over a certain amperage. I
Mhm.
think that's amperage.
Amperage, I think is the name.
Yeah, so that was what the problem was.
So basically, Ken, because he trained in the spacecraft for literally 6 months, a simulated spacecraft, and he spent night and day just trying to figure out how to get as much power, as much everything, and he just stayed in the simulation. And one of talking about quotes again, they're like, "Do you need a break?" And he said, "My boys aren't getting a break, so neither do I."
Yep.
And he works day and night, and
Friendship.
yeah, like honestly, and which is who played Jim Lavelle? He's very famous.
Tom Hanks.
Hanks. I knew
Yeah.
that. Tom Hanks, and before, like right before they kick him from the space program, he's like, "I can't lose this guy. Literally, I know his tone of voice. I know how he thinks. I know how he is. We're like a well-oiled machine together." And I personally don't think that they would have been saved if Matt. I don't think that they would have been saved if Matt didn't spend the countless hours trying to figure out what to do and how to save it, which I think was literally an act of God, because you see at the end of the movie, literally thousands and thousands of people are praying like, "Oh my gosh, just pray for these astronauts so that they can get home," which is cool to think about.
Yeah, so talking about like a moving event or something like that, I feel like the story, it really it took a toll on me in a way that I've never experienced a quote unquote national crisis.
Oh yeah.
So like I said, I'm 18. The closest thing that I've experienced to a national crisis is 9/11, and I was right at 4 months old. I was born in April, so do the math there.
Mhm.
But that's the closest thing that I've ever been to in a national crisis.
So you don't even remember it.
Exactly, yeah. I have no recollection of 9/11 other than people telling me, and then the
Footage
memorial.
and-
Yeah, and as far as like I guess huge events in my time is just like epidemics. So like Ebola a couple years back, and just within the past few weeks, the coronavirus.
Mhm.
So I really have no.
Experience.
Yeah, I don't have any experience. I have, like I said, I have sympathy for that situation, but I can't have empathy because I've never been through anything like that. I've never been the citizen just hoping and praying that this will all go over well.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So, how do you think the story affected you personally? Like, change your view and all that stuff.
It's one of those where it's like, had I been a citizen alive at that time, I think I'd have been just like anybody else, just hoping and praying, And if I was a relative or even a close relative of one of the three that was up there, I'd just be a big mess, just almost hysterical, praying and just hoping that everything will go over well.
Mm-hmm. One thing that the story affected me tremendously, because when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be an astronaut growing up. Now, I realize that I'm not smart enough now to do so, but I wanted to become an astronaut. I love to look into space. Or I love looking off into space, you get it? Pun intended. Looking off into space with the movie. Okay, cheesy joke. I'm going to keep going.
That one went straight over my head.
I gave it a snicker.
But I love to explore the beauty of creation as a whole. Like, there's a scene when the astronaut, Jim, is close to re-entry, and he looks out the window and sees Earth in its natural beauty. And all that I'm saying is, it's like, I wish that was me, like, to be able to witness that. But not really, because I don't want to die or get super sick in a rocket and try to fight for my life. But that's how the story affected me for sure. Like, I wish I could be that.
I'm sure we've all experienced our Earth out of the window.
Yeah.
So like I'm sure everybody's been in a real hard time, and they've seen their Earth out of the window. It's just something so beautiful. It's like it gives you that hope, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep going on because of that.
So has the story affected you at all, Kyler? Okay.
Yeah. So the story affected me. Well, this time it was more of how the story was told that affected me, not so much the story itself. So like, do y'all know what Academy Award / awards this movie won?
I'm sure plenty. It was a really good movie.
It won 2.
Okay.
Was nominated for more.
Okay.
Including Best Picture. Didn't win that. It won Best Sound.
Okay.
So all of the sound design, all of the rocket ripping apart, all of the rocket lifting off, the cars accelerating, everything that you heard, that was part of that. But the other one that it won was Best Editing, which I think had to do a lot with how this movie affected me, because it truly made my heart race.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel scared for them. It was definitely the music and the pacing, and that's why they won Best Editing, I'm sure, because the pacing of the film made your heart race and made you think, oh my gosh, are they going to get out in time?
Also, just think about the time era. It was 1995 when they made the movie. So if it went down for Best Editing, and it's still, like, my opinion, when I saw the movie, it's like, it actually genuinely looks like they're in space, which is cool.
And so going back to what Kyler was saying about like the pacing of the movie and stuff like that, when I was watching this movie, I finished it last night, and I was sitting on my bed, and my girlfriend was right next to me, and I was like, okay, this is the type of movie that's gonna have you hold your breath, and it's like that was such a true statement, just because, you know, the lack of oxygen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, you know, when he goes to cycle the oxygen, it's like you see it, and it's like the most intense scene because you just know something bad's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And when he flips those switches, there it goes.
Yeah. So kudos to the writers and the director, Ron Howard, and to the editor, because they did a wonderful job
Yes, I
putting this
agree.
movie together.
And just a little fun fact before we get on to our next step is that there's an Easter egg in the film that just absolutely stands out to me the most.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
When you, at the end of the movie, the astronauts come home, the Navy, I believe it's the Navy, picks them up out of the water.
Yes.
That's the
And-
reason it's called the successful failure, because they didn't get onto the moon,
Yeah,
but they
they-
made it back home
Yes.
alive.
Yes.
And when they get home, the Navy picks them up, sends them off in a jet, and they make it back to, like, you know, the land and back to society. And you see the main character, which is
Jim Lovell.
Jim Lovell. Oh my gosh, which is like Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yes.
Tom Hanks. Walking out, nodding at everyone, waving,
Smiling,
blah, blah,
shaking
blah.
hands.
And if you pay attention, for those who like to watch movies, he shakes hand with an old gentleman. That gentleman was Jim Lovell. And I think that's so cool that they actually included him in the film. I tip my hat to that. So,
Heck yeah. So, for those of y'all who have been with us for the past couple episodes, we always end with a game. We have done Who Said It the first week. We did Rewrite the last one. And this week we're doing something new. It's going to be called Choose Your Own Adventure. So, out of the 3 movies we've watched so far, Casablanca, Indiana Jones, and Apollo 13, we are going to pick one of those movies to live out as an actual person. And we're going to tell why. So, who wants to start?
So I will start.
Mike?
So just like how I said it before with I'm 18, never experienced a national crisis. Not to say that I would love to go through one of those things, because I never want to put anybody in danger like that. I wouldn't want anybody to have to go through that again. But if I was to live through any one of those movies, it would definitely have to be Apollo 13. But I wouldn't want to live as one of the astronauts. I'd like
Neither
to be.
would I.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would. But I would like to be like a citizen on Earth, just kind of experiencing the entire event. Well, simply because I've never experienced something like that. And not to say that I think that it would be fun, but just to say that.
That you've done it.
Yeah,
That
just
now you've experienced something
yeah, and
difficult or traumatic in a way.
and usually stuff like that. It makes you all the wiser and stuff like that.
well, for me, I would probably, this sounds so dumb, but choose actually one of the astronauts. Because as I was going before, I've always wanted to go into space. I always wanted to view things like that. And there's a scene in Apollo 13 to where they're going to the dark side of the moon. They're behind the moon. And he said, like, it is crazy. Like, it is just absolute beautiful, blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't be able to get to see that type of stuff on Earth.
Yeah, I remember that. That's when it says like something about the
The stars are so so much
because-
brighter because there's no sun
yeah, because the moon is blocked.
blocking out the sun.
Mhm.
And he also...
Blocking out the haters.
And he also talks about the horizon on the, or the sunrise on the moon, or whatever it's called. I forgot where the sun comes around. I think it's the sunrise. I don't even call it the sunrise. But when the sun comes around the moon, and he just says there's nothing else like it. And I think just seeing what they saw, I would give anything for. Like, I would choose. I would probably say Jim. Well,
Maybe Jim.
yeah, for sure.
think he was the most calm and level-headed, and I think that was a very important role in the movie. Yeah, exactly, the commander. I mean, I think it was a really important role just for the movie in general, because had it been somebody else with as hot as temper as the other two, they may not have even lasted through the event.
Absolutely. So for me, I think, well, first off, no one has chose Casablanca or Indiana Jones yet, but I'm going to choose Indiana Jones. I think, I don't even know who I'd be, but last time I said I would love to have an adventure, and that just seems to fit the bill for me. Granted, I don't want to get punched in the face like Indy, but I would be such a wussy. Like I would.
Like that bee earlier.
But it'd just be a cool life to live.
Yeah, like that wasp we saw earlier. It would be a cool life to live. It would be adventurous and interesting. And never be bored, for sure. So yeah, that's my choice. Good choices all around, I suppose. Sad that no one chose Casablanca.
No, that's no.
The story that has no story.
The story that has no story. What?
He didn't listen to the podcast, that's for sure.
You haven't listened to the first one.
Sorry, the story that doesn't introduce the story?
Oh,
Yeah.
frick! Okay, hold on.
Holy cow.
Hold on, I'm sorry. RIP headphone users. Okay. Okay, I meant to do this every episode. I'm making it a thing. All the names.
Yes, that's what I was talking. That's what I was talking about. I was just trying to do it, you know.
Sorry, everyone.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to do this every episode where I tell where the names were said in the movie, because Casablanca didn't say any of the names till like halfway through the film. Indiana Jones, they said them in the first 5 minutes, and all the main characters' names were said in the first like 3 minutes of this film. You were introduced to Jim Lovell as the main character, and then his partners after that. So, yeah. Sorry, headphone users. I'm sorry.
Just
right.
like that.
All right. Well,
So we're going to close out this episode. Mike, you want to do it for us?
All right, so the last part of this podcast is going to be the after credit scene, and it's going to be a sound clip of the next movie that we choose.
So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, here's the clip.
500 yards. That's the length of 5 football fields.
Cool.
try to guess where it's from, and hopefully you'll get a shout out in the next pod.
So that's all from us. I'm Kyler.
I'm Ethan.
I'm Michael.
See you next time. Roll credits. Welcome to the Feature Film Podcast.
Today we're talking about failure and the measles.
Enjoy the show.
I messed up.
It's all right. We'll do it again.
Okay. Bam! I messed that up.
We were cruising and we hit a brick wall. That's what just happened.
So for those who have been watching, or it's a podcast.
For those of you who have been watching our
Okay,
podcast,
wait. We have to leave that in.
creepy.
No.
because we have
We'll
to-
throw in a blooper at the end or something. For those who have been watching our podcast.
You're creepy because we don't put this on video anywhere.
Is that you right there,
In
Frank?
the window.
Okay. So
Oh,
oh, why? You did it on purpose.
Oh, I sucked
Right
it.
here. I slapped you.
All right.
Okay. He's here. Oh, frick! The background.
We should have had him way in the back,
Yeah.
running up to the mic.